In this split-level house, the kitchen is down here in the basement, so it's a fairly dark room. And the homeowner wrote us about her cabinets. They're a little beat up, and she wants to lighten them up by painting them. So we have called in our painting contractor, Rich O'Neill. Good morning, Rich.
Good morning, Kevin.
Tracy, how are you?
Good, how are you?
All right, so you did some work on the house.
Yes, I actually have done a lot since I bought it 3 years ago. The first place I started was downstairs. In the kitchen, I redid the tile. I had this put in over the old tile, which was a 6x6 bright white square with a heather blue rectangle in the middle of the kitchen.
And that wasn't working for you?
No, it certainly was not. Not with the granite countertop that was already in here.
Sure. Well, this looks pretty good. And what else did you do?
Well, the next thing I did once the tile was in is I decided to paint the walls. They were dirty and pretty beat up. So I chose a nice soft yellow here to brighten it up because we are in the basement level.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy with it.
What do you think, Rich?
Looks good. Nice crisp cut lines, nice brushwork on the trim.
Oh, coming from Rich, that's a nice endorsement.
Thank you.
All right, so you wrote us about the cabinets. What don't you like about these?
Well, actually several things. Right here you can see there's scratch marks right across this space here.
Someone put a big X in that.
Yes,
right?
for some reason. And there's lots of dirt and grime where all the hands go. And I haven't been able to get that off. Down here there's drip marks, and they just seem to be set into the wood at this point. So over here we also have tape that the previous owner decided to put on there, and I haven't been able to get it off, and at this point I think I might hurt the wood, so I've stopped trying to get that off.
And what are you thinking?
So I went online and I looked at some of my options for cabinets, and I don't think they need to be replaced. So I spent some time, about 2 days, looking at the different options for cabinet refacing.
What are the options, Rich?
There are two primary options. One is to strip and refinish, restain in polyurethane the cabinets.
So I had to strip down all of this wood, take all the polyurethane off?
Right, it's very time consuming. The other option is to paint them.
And you're thinking painting, right?
I think I've decided on painting because the other, with painting, I'm gonna really brighten up down here. So I think if I go with the nice trim color here, it'll really complete the look and brighten up the kitchen at the same time.
So when we paint them, Rich, what are we actually painting?
We'd always paint the exterior faces of the frames.
Yeah.
Also both sides of the doors.
Yeah, because we'll see those when they're open, right?
Right. And then always you would paint the faces of the drawer fronts.
So right here on the face, what about
Right.
the actual drawer box itself?
You can also paint the inside of the drawer box and the sides. You can also paint the interior of the boxes, but it's very time consuming.
Well, what do you think, Tracy? You up for that, or you want to leave these the natural wood?
Well, I think if I'm gonna go ahead and do this project, I'm gonna do it the right way, and I'm gonna paint the inside so it looks nice.
I like to hear that. She is up for it. So, how do we get started?
Well, the first step is to remove the cabinet doors. I like to remove the cabinet doors to gain access to the face frames and all the edges of the doors. Remove the bottom hinge and then work your way to the top. It's very important to label the cabinet doors to make sure there's no confusion when you go to install them. I like to remove the bottom hinge and then number the door and put some painter's tape over that to make sure that it doesn't get painted over when we paint the door.
So, Rich, we're going to need some supplies.
You sure will.
All right, so what do you say we take a trip down to the home center? You guys up for that?
Sounds great.
While we're there, I'd actually like to take a look at some of the knobs and pulls and some hinges to match.
Okay.
In that case, it'd be a good idea to bring a door along.
Let's go. What do you got there, Rich?
This is a degreaser. We're going to use this to clean the cabinets before we paint them. This is really important.
All right.
We also have a bonding primer. We're going to apply 1 coat of that. And this is an acrylic water-based enamel. We're going to apply 2 coats of that.
Actually, that was one of my biggest questions, is whether or not I should use an oil-based or a water-based paint for the cabinets. Why are we going with a water-based paint?
Well, for your kitchen, I'd recommend a water-based paint because it'll have better color retention, fewer solvents, and it will clean up nice and easy.
Oh, great.
But don't people like oil because it gives you a harder finish, and that's got to be important with kitchen cabinets?
Well, that's true, but oil-based paint has a lot of solvent in it, and it yellows and changes color very quickly. So my solution to that is to use a water-based polyurethane over the paint. We apply 2 coats of that, and it gives a nice, durable, beautiful-looking finish.
So now we're up to 5 coats, 1 primer, 2 top, 2 poly. That's a lot of coats.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, but the durability and the appearance are well worth it.
All right, you got some good-looking cabinets.
I hope so.
So I got brushes, and there were synthetic or natural.
Yeah, we'll go with the synthetic because a natural bristle brush will swell and become floppy when used with water-based paint.
All right, so those are in there, and then I got tack cloths as well.
Yeah, that's great. And it's important to make sure that you get dry tack cloths when used with water-based paint.
All right.
So that it doesn't leave an oily residue on the surface that could cause adhesion problems.
So you say dry, we've got the sandpaper, we've got the buckets, so all that's left is hardware for you?
Yep.
And we got to get this mixed. You have a color?
I do. I have a swatch here, and my trim color that I'm going to use is right there.
All right, we'll mix you get hardware, and we'll see you at the checkout.
Okay.
Before we paint anything, it's very important to degrease all the surfaces that we're going to paint. So spray some of the cleaner onto a clean cloth and scrub the surface to remove all of the grease and oil so that the paint will stick really well to the surface. Using a palm sander, we sand the surface with 100 grit paper to abrade the surface and give it some tooth so that the primer will adhere to it really well. I like to use a palm sander because it's fast and it does a really thorough job. For the moldings, I fold the sandpaper over and use the crease to get into the edge where the panel and the moldings come together. That's great. It's always a good idea to dust off the surface and then use a tack cloth to get any remaining dust off of there.
So Rich, we've got ourselves a clean door here. Are we ready for our first coat of primer?
That's right.
All right, what are we using?
We're using acrylic bonding primer to make sure that it grabs onto the polyurethane surface real well.
And you've got a bucket here with a liner. We'd like to see that.
That's right. I like to use a pot liner to keep the paint clean, prevent debris from getting into the gallon can, and also so that I can tap off my brush after I dip it.
All right, let's get to it. Actually, why don't we have Tracy do it?
Great idea. Here you go, Tracy.
You have the brush.
What you want to do is dip the brush and tap it on the side of the
Both
pot
sides.
liner.
Both
Yeah, both
sides?
sides, that's right. And then bring the brush to your surface, starting at the moldings, at the edge of the panels. You want to paint all of the moldings and then paint the field of the flat panel.
This is the field?
That's right. You want to work in 2 steps. Get the paint on there first for coverage and then smooth it out to make it look nice and catch any drips or runs. That's great. Let me show you how to paint the field of the panel. Thank you. I dip the brush, tap it on both sides, and bring it to the surface, and just get the product on there for coverage.
Not too worried about how it looks at this point.
That's right. We'll get the paint on there, and then with a fairly dry brush, we'll smooth it off and remove any of the runs and sags. Notice I put the brush into the corner to make sure that we get the bristles right into those edges. Now that I have the coverage, with a fairly dry brush, I lay it off in smooth, even strokes. And first I do the moldings, and then I'll smooth out the face of the panel. You can see I start in the corners and bring with long, smooth brush strokes from one corner down to the other. Bring it out of the corner and feather off as you come to the middle of the panel.
And so by feathering, you mean that you're actually reducing the pressure that you have on that brush?
That's right. You lighten up on your brush stroke and taper off the stroke so that you don't leave any brush strokes in the middle of your panel. And after you're done with the panel, we move on to the frame of the door, also known as the rails and stiles. And again, you work in 2 steps. Apply the paint for coverage, and then smooth it out to make it look nice. You'll notice that I propped the door up so I can more easily do the edges.
Just a couple rolls of tape will do the trick.
Now we're ready to do the back.
So you've got a couple hooks that you put into the door?
That's right, and we'll use these to hang the door while we're painting the back.
So you've got yourself a little ingenious station over here. 2 ladders, 2 2x4s on the top, and then a whole series of hooks here. I presume the hang doors while they dry, and then 2 more right here.
That's right. So this will be a painting station, and we'll hang the door from these hooks while we paint the back. After that, we'll move it over to a drying area.
All right, now Rich, we got to critique her here, right? See if she picked up any of your lessons.
Yeah, the first thing is we have this little trick. We put a screw in here in one of the screw holes from the hinge. You can use that as a little handle so that the door doesn't swing back and forth while you brush it.
Now, does it matter if I do the field here first or if I do the edges?
Yeah, you want to paint the back just like the front. So you'd paint all around the edges of the panel, just like you're doing. Painting the door while it's hanging like this and holding on to the screw as a handle is actually a little bit more difficult than painting it horizontally on the table.
But if you laid it flat on the table, you'd have to wait for each side to dry, and it'd probably slow the whole process down.
Exactly.
Looks good. So time for the drying rack?
That's right.
And you've got the hooks here. Are these on the top of the door?
Yes, we put them on the top of the door for the upper cabinets. That way they're into what we call the blind side.
I can't see them up high, and then on the lower cabinets, you probably put the hooks in the bottom.
That's right.
All right, so we've got about 15 more doors to do, right?
That's right.
And we're going to have what on them?
A prime coat, 2 coats of paint, and 2 coats of water-based polyurethane.
All right, that is a lot of work left. We're not going to stick around for the whole job. Are you up for the task?
Absolutely.
All right, well, we'll check back in with you and see how it looks.
Okay, great. Thanks for your help.
A few weeks ago, when we left Tracy, we put her to work and we wished her luck. Let's see how she did. Hey there, Tracy.
Hi, Kevin.
Wow.
So, what do you think?
Boy, I like it. This is a far cry from those dark oak cabinets you used to have. You've got yourself a contemporary kitchen. But more importantly, what do you think?
I think it looks fantastic. It came out a lot better than I thought it would. I'm really happy.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.